a lot of things Bitcoin for the baby boomer generation and also new Bitcoiners. And so with Jor and I, we've got two different generations spanned right here, and we like to cover some things that are kind of like current topics and questions, answers, all that stuff. We try to nail some of those things right here in a short period of time for our listeners and for future listeners. So we're with that. We will take some time at the sort of towards the half hour mark, 40-minute mark, somewhere in there. We're going to be specifically just listening um, to our listeners, what questions you have. We'd like to take some time to kind of go down and answer those. So please feel free to reach out to us and see if we've got any burning questions, anything that Jor might have mentioned, anything that I might have mentioned, anything that comes up for y'all. So Jor, what have you got? What have you got for us today? Tell us some new and interesting things that you got.
I think for the last week, it's been a lot of people panicking. What's going on with the price? What's happening with this? Why? I was promised 100K. I was promised $1 million Bitcoin. And I think the more of these little dips that you go through, the better off you're going to be in the long run. The one consistent through my time in Bitcoin, anyways, is that it's very inconsistent. So there's lots of highs. There's probably just as many lows. And I think the whole point of doing shows like this and showing up here is to really just grow that conviction. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's the unanimous thing within Bitcoiners is like the more time you spend learning about Bitcoin and delving into it, the easier it is to kind of weather these weeks. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm looking forward to, I was watching American HODL and Jeff, I want to say Jeff Booth every time, but it's Jeff Ross. They're more like analytical, technical guys. And they're pretty much calling right now about the same as what happened in 2017. I wasn't around at that time, but they were. And so they're kind of saying that both chart wise and, emotionally wise, we're going through the same kind of lull right before the big run up in 2017. The exact same thing happened. So that's kind of what I foresee. So I'm kind of in the process of just getting as much as I can into Bitcoin right now, making sure everything's kind of in place because you want to get this stuff done before it happens, not after the fact. So that's where my focus is right now. How was your trip, Bodie? We went a couple weeks there apart, but we managed to get her done. How was the trip?
Yeah. Thanks for taking the helm there last week. And I see Buck 52,000. Hello, sir, or ma'am. So last week was my hair was on fire, and you can see I don't have enough to burn. I was on the plane at the time the podcast was going live, but no, it was a really good trip. Let me summarize it this way, just in summary, that going into a very small conference that was very high signal and intensely packed with some software developers, some tinkerers, some people that are in the Bitcoin mining heat reuse space, which is a very niche space. I did that specifically because I have something that I'm looking to try to bring forward, an entrepreneur and things. Well, I am out of my comfort zone. I am in a place where I don't know. I had a friend who was able to meet me there, but I didn't know really what that space was going to be like or who the people were going to be like. I'm used to like sharks in the water everywhere, and the guys that I work with are like, just waiting for me to have a crack in my armor, and then they're just going to like beeline for the kill. Didn't feel like that at all. I noticed we had just a little glitch there for a second.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Didn't feel like that at all. In fact, the space was very very like pioneer kind of like, and then we're all like just, I mean, this is paraphrasing it, but kind of feeling like like here's a bunch of cowboys on the wild frontier, and we, here's a chuck wagon and there's a campfire there, and here we are all gathered around the campfire, and it's like, hey, I'm cold, you're cold too. Okay, let's gather around here and kind of like, we're gonna have some grub, we're gonna eat some stuff, we're gonna, have a drink or something. But man, look around, man, there's nobody here, so it kind of felt like that. And it was, so the overall feeling coming, with that context was kind of like, I think this is going to be really interesting. It's going to be really great learning from these smart guys who are in this space. And then me bringing my own experience to, it has nothing to do with any software development or developing any hardware or any kind of thing like that. Just my own experience as a contractor and doing the things that I did, and also like dealing with customers and how to do that, and how to talk to other contractors. That's my space, and so it was a great experience in summary.
And that was specifically focused on Bitcoin mining, right?
Yeah, and I was gonna touch on this. Might as well just bring this up right now.
Yeah, let's do it. I kind of want to get into some mining stuff today, because I know as a new Bitcoiner, this is something that I did my best to kind of shy away from, because I just didn't have any sort of understanding of it. I didn't have anybody to break it down in a very simple way. And so I think the more you understand about mining, the more you can understand the value of Bitcoin, I think, because until you understand the mining process and how this network is secured and how new Bitcoins are created, essentially, it all just kind of sounds like pretty wishy-washy. Even if you kind of, understand some components and aspects of Bitcoin, without that key ingredient of understanding the Bitcoin mining, you're not really going to fully comprehend what's happening here. So I think it's a good day today, kind of going off of your trip, to talk about mining a little bit in a very simple way where people can relate to it and understand it.
Yeah. So I already see some questions over there. One from Buck 52,000. We're going to get to those questions here. Let me just kind of finish my thoughts here on this Bitcoin mining. So I am like, you want to talk green as the grass. I am green as the grass when it comes to Bitcoin mining. There's this thing called a BitAxe. It's a very small kind of personal miner that you can run, and you can do all these things with. Just so you know, like I have like 2 of them, and I still haven't got them running yet. Okay, so I'm just full disclosure. I'm still learning. This is brand new to me. But I'm smart enough to know that when there's smart people around me, I'm like looking at them. I'm listening to them. I'm like, kind of discerning. Are they above my wavelength? Can I even understand what they're talking about, or do I need to like, go back to my own research and try to, so with that, I decided to go to this conference in Denver, and there was probably 100 people there or something over the period of 2 days. And one of the guys that put this thing together, he's a co-owner in this thing called The Space in Denver. And it's kind of like the Bitcoin Hub, or one of these places they have in Nashville. They have them in Austin. It's kind of a core hub place where Bitcoiners go and they learn about things. They host stuff. Well, they created this space in Denver, and it's kind of an open source kind of thing where they're happy to teach people to do this in other locations, but that's The Space. Okay, so that was helpful to have that. They educate people there. They have a facility where they can host things. But in this particular conference, it was called the Undermine 2025. It's for Heat Punk. That's what they call the Heat Punk. It's kind of like the cypherpunks were the guys, or the OGs from original when they started Bitcoin, when Satoshi started Bitcoin. Well, these guys are called the Heat Punks. And anyway, so this guy, Tyler Stevens, he wrote this book sponsored by Brains, which is a mining company that they do a lot of things. They educate people about all the different stuff with mining Bitcoin, hardware, software, firmware, datum, all these terminology things that I don't, it's all doesn't make a ton of sense to me yet. But he wrote this book right here. And this is it's a book. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. It's called Bitcoin Mining Heat Reuse. It's got quite a bit of technical stuff in it, but it's got just enough level of stuff that it's kind of like who are the innovators in this space, who are creating things that are actually helping people heat their space and earn Bitcoin on the side. And so anyway, I would just say that all the technical stuff kind of went over my head, but the guys who were actually like making stuff, they're building stuff, they're tinkering, they were showing things that were like, okay, if you have heat in and you have a machine, I'm sorry, let me back up. If you have electricity in and you have a machine in the middle and you have heat coming out, that's what we are used to. Okay. But if you have a smart heater, you have electricity coming in and you have a machine and you have heat coming out, the same amount of heat as the other kind, but you also have Bitcoin coming out. This is something I might have explained previously, but I don't think so. But anyway, I want to share with you that this book is, I think, the first book of its kind. Tyler Stevens is the author. It has a foreword by another guy from Fog Hashing, but it's kind of sponsored by Brains. And I'm going to show you a link here of kind of the Brains website, and they have what they have is they have books here, and this book that I just showed you is not yet in the list of Bitcoin books. It's not on their website, but there is a link in one of the Living in the Future. I put it in the Bitcoin mining section of the Discord resources. So anyway, they have other books here. They have the Bitcoin mining handbook, which is sort of a general mining handbook. They have the one on the Bitcoin economics, and they have some other things on Bitcoin here with the Bitcoin separation of money and state. And I'm not shilling Brains, but I'm just sharing this book with you. Okay. So anyway,
you're allowed to chill. It's your show, man.
Well, I mean, I don't get paid anything by Brains. I don't get paid anything for any of this. I'm kind of like approach it the same way you do. And that's like, hey, I'm going to try some different things and we're going to see how they work. And then if it's worthy, then and only then will I bring it to this group of people that are watching our show here. Because we're adding value by every minute that we produce here. So whether it's today in February, 27th, 2025, or if it's, 10 years from now and somebody's just like, hey, who's that old guy that's trying to teach people about Bitcoin mining? Anyway, let me pause. There is something else I wanted to share out of the book, just something I wanted to read shortly, but I wanted to let you do you have any questions so far?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how much we've covered on Bitcoin mining in this show so far. And I think that through the years, I've kind of gone through the process myself of trying to figure this stuff out. I feel like I have a good understanding of it. I'm nowhere near some of the people who would have been at that conference in terms of the understanding, but I get the general principle of it. And so essentially when you think about, if we just take a step back here and we think about what's happening. And so let's go back to 2009 when the very first Bitcoin block was mined, January 3rd, 2009. We've talked about the Genesis block. That was the first time that Bitcoin was really introduced to the world. And so ever since then, every 10 minutes on average, there's been a new block that's been mined. And every time there's a new block that's mined, not only does it have a whole bunch of transaction, and that's kind of what keeps track of who owns what within Bitcoin, but whoever mines that block gets paid in Bitcoin. So that's the incentive for people. That's why people would want to mine Bitcoin, is because if they happen to mine the block, if they happen to hit the block equation, which I'll talk about in just a sec, but if they're lucky enough to hit the block reward, they get paid. Back in 2009, if somebody mined a block successfully, they would get 50 Bitcoin.
Yep.
Fast forward 4 years in 2012, let's say, because of the halving schedule, because of the supply schedule, they got paid 25, and then 12, and then 6, and then we're at 3 now. So every 4 years approximately, those block rewards, the incentives for people to mine get cut in half. And that's essentially how all the Bitcoin has been put onto the market so far. There's been no like Satoshi didn't send 1 million coins to his brother. He didn't send 1 million coins to whoever funded the project. Every single Bitcoin that is in existence right now has been mined through this process. And so essentially what people are doing when they're mining, that's the incentive, is if you hit the block reward, if you solve the equation, you get paid in Bitcoin. So that's what the miners do. They try to balance out how much they're spending on their electricity costs, their energy costs, versus what's their return in terms of the Bitcoin that they get back from it. So essentially what's happening here is if we go back to 2009 and we think about what the mining process was at that point, because there was so few amount of people mining Bitcoin at the time, you could have just done it on a laptop, like a general computer, because it didn't need that much computing power to compete to mine the next block. So essentially what's happening there is people plug in their miners. Now in this case, it's a miner. Before it was a laptop, but they plug in this computer. I call them like supercomputers. That's the best way to think about it, I think. And all these supercomputers are doing is they take your energy, your electricity, that's what's powering it. And all they're doing is guessing. They're trying to guess. They're spitting out trillions of guesses per second. And the computer that solves that equation that's built into the Bitcoin code, that's who gets to mine the block, and they get paid in Bitcoin. So that's why people do it in terms of the incentive there. And forever into the future, those block rewards, the new supply will continue to be cut in half. So it's a very interesting industry. I think there's a lot of good things to it. There's also a lot of risks to it. Obviously, if you're not, because it's so randomized, if you're putting in all this electricity costs and if you don't hit a block, then you're just going to be out a bunch of money. There's different ways you can do it when you're by yourself and you're trying to hit that, like a bitaxe or something, solo mining. Most of the bigger miners, they have pool. So it's kind of based on an average of how much Bitcoin they'll get versus how much they, put into it. So it's quite the dynamic. And I think the further you get into it, the more you understand like how solid of a system this is. It kind of runs by itself in a lot of ways. And that's a cool thing. It all just goes back to Bitcoin being a protocol and code, and everything kind of runs off of that. And if anybody wants to make changes to that code, it has to be in consensus with everybody who's participating in it. So it's super fascinating. The more time I spend in it, I just get more, interested by it. I run a bitaxe myself here, which they're about $200. They don't really produce that much energy. They don't cost a whole lot. The risk is very low. The reward is also pretty low unless you hit a block, which is like, I don't know, 1 in a billion odds. But if you think about that, like if you can see this little bitaxe here behind me here, I don't know if it's right there.
Yep, there it is.
It's just this wee little thing. And so if you think about it like that, like that's all that thing does all day is just try to guess. It's just spitting out guesses. And because it's, it might cost me $5 a month. So my odds are pretty low. But if I had 1 million of those and I had 1 million times more guesses, it would cost me a lot more. But my odds of solving the next block and getting the rewards, the Bitcoin, would increase. So some of the bigger miners, they have like, 1,000 or 2,000 times more power than me. And that's kind of what they do or more than that. So super interesting. But Bodhi's talking about how that applies to heating. And so maybe I'll let you just kind of carry on the conversation with how that relates to people heating their houses and heating their shops and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, the number of people across the network that are increasing the number of miners that are mining, right? That increases the hash rate. So that's all making the network stronger. Okay, that's all good for Bitcoin, right? It's like, you get it today or you get it next month or you get it next year, you get it right here. When you get it, you're going to be making the network stronger with your knowledge, with your contributions, with the number of miners that you decide to put on the network. Um, it's so good. And it's also really good to run a node. Although with new Bitcoiners, with baby boomers who are like just trying to get up to speed, you don't have to do that. You get it at the speed in which you're ready to get it at, right? Not everybody's ready to hear all that. So, but one thing that really, I titled this video, this show today, stacking skills in the service trades, generational profits. Well, yeah, so that's the question, right? Well, will this thing profit for a long time? Well, my encouragement is for people in the trades to learn to stack their skills, to learn some things, additional things that are coming. It's like people were saying for a long time, AI is coming, AI and this and AI that. Well, there's people now, the younger people especially, who are business owners. They're using AI in their businesses, right? Okay, so boomers, if you don't use AI in your business yet, stack your skills. Start learning how to use AI because it is here and it's been here for a while. And if you're not using it, right? So this is the kind of thing that for people in the trades to learn how to use the heat from a Bitcoin miner. A really good way to think about it is that, like, so heat is a product, right? To be sold. Heat is a product to be used. It's not a problem. And they go into that in this book here. Okay. But just thinking about it, thinking through it is, you know, you can have, like I said before, you can have a smart heater, you can have a dumb heater. When you think about how much it costs for a smart heater compared to what it costs for a dumb heater, let's just give you a real world example. Let's say your dumb heater is $50 and you can go buy a space heater that heats for $50, okay? But the smart heater is $200, let's say. Okay,
Bodhi, sorry, I don't mean to break your train of thought there
okay,
on space heaters, but I think it's important to just kind of let everybody know like where the heat's coming from. So
sure,
when you plug in a Bitcoin miner into the wall, because it's trying to guess so much, it's using a ton of computational power. And that
right,
computational power is what's spitting out the heat, right?
yes.
So that's what Bodhi's talking about here in terms of the space heaters and stuff like that. So sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you. It helps me bring context to the conversation, and that is that so they use ASIC chips. The current state of the technology is they use these ASIC chips, and I don't recall right off the top of my head what that stands for, but it's a certain kind of chip that does this computations, really intense number of computations in a
Yeah.
very short period of time. All the electricity that goes to that chip is used, and then that creates heat. Well, there's all kinds of cooling techniques there's three different kinds basically of cooling techniques to cool the chip so that it can actually run more efficiently. And when it runs more efficiently, it actually is, the performance of it is better, right? So the hash power goes up. What is hash power? Hash power or hash rate is Bitcoin that is mined from that that chip or from that miner or that group of miners in that pool. So if you have more efficiency, your hash rate's going to go up. This is all what you want. This is what you want to have. Okay. So let's just talk quickly about the three different kinds of ways to cool this thing. There's air cooled, and that's where you see the fans with the bidax. They have the little fan that blows on the chips. Okay. The fins on the little metal fins dissipates the heat off the chip. Okay. That creates heat. But on a little tiny Bitcoin bidax, there's not that much heat. It's not going to heat your room. Um, on a bigger miner, though, it does create a lot of heat, and it can heat a room. It can actually, you can heat a house. You can heat, right? You can heat a pool. You can heat a hot tub. You can heat a greenhouse. There's a lot of different heat reuses for the heat that's coming off here. Okay, so we're trying to take advantage of the heat. And what are we going to do with the heat productively that's already being done with other heaters that are not very smart? Okay, so you have air cooled, and then you have water cooled or immersion, and it's way above my pay grade. Okay, I am not the guy to explain this, but I will say that they use an oil based special kind of oil that they immerse this whole section of this mining unit into this fluid, and then they basically, through a heat exchanger, they take the fluid and then they extract the heat from that, and then it goes and does something else for you. And then there is another one, and it's kind of like that, where it's not the immersion based liquid cooling. It's where they actually attach it's like a plate that they attach to these chips that sits on top of the chips, and inside this, it's kind of a hollow plate. Just figure like a square plate that is hollow. It's maybe yay big, yay thick, and it's hollow, and they inject fluid in that, water inside that thing, and it flows back and forth, and it cools the chips, but it actually transfers the heat to the fluid that's inside. It's separate, that's contained separate from the chip. It has an intake and a discharge side, and it goes out, and then they take that fluid and then they run that through a radiator to about 80 degrees. So the fluid is coming out at about 80 degrees, let's say, or let's say, as it was explained to me, there's about a 10-degree differential. Okay, so I'm not trying to lose anybody here. I'm just trying to explain the three different kinds of ways that these things are cooled. So that, in a nutshell, is how these different kinds of cooling techniques are used to extract the heat from these chips that are busy working hard. And the more expensive miners, the current state-of-the-art miners, are, $3,000, $5,000, $7,000, and they're creating a lot of hash rate, but they're also creating a lot of heat, right? So if you spend a lot of money on something, you can get something that works really efficiently. But if you're like starting out in the space and you're just trying to get started, then you might not have that much money to spend. So you're going to not have as much hash rate. You're not going to generate as much heat, but you can still get started in this space. So a lot of the people, the inventors, the innovators, they're using, and there are a couple of use cases in here. They've got probably, I think, they highlight 4 or 5 different inventors in here that have taken different situations. And one of the guys is Antoine from 256 Heat. Another guy is the guy from Nakamoto Heating. And then there's another guy out of Montana who's created what's the name of his company? It's Clay Burnett, and I don't recall his company's name right now. But the point is that we are just at the very beginning of the number of people that are going to be creating things for different industries to use heat with these smart machines. And one of the things, this is something I would say to the guys in the trades before I pause here. The guys in the trades who are business owners or who are technicians, who are actually, on the ground, rubber meets the road, they're making things happen. One of the things is, how do you get somebody to kind of buy into this idea of, hey, we've got this smart heater, we'd like to put it in your business, or we'd like you to use it and try this out, test this thing out. We want to try to help you, earn some Bitcoin or something. Well, one of the things I learned was that, hey, in the early stages of adoption, like Bitcoin is in right now, and especially the very early stages of Bitcoin mining, which nobody really knows about yet, or at least many people don't on a commercial scale, is if I'm trying to get you, you're my customer, let's say, Jor, and I'm trying to get you to like put this in your business. Use this thing. We're going to try this out. Okay. Instead of me trying to explain to you that, hey, we're going to put this heater in your house and you're going to make Bitcoin. You're going to do all this stuff. You're going to be like, huh, you said this thing, you said the Bitcoin word, and that's freaking me out. Like, I don't understand that. Okay. Try this instead. Try, hey, we're going to try this out. This is a new kind of heater. It's a smart heater, but it can actually give you a rebate on your electrical bill. Okay. So we want you to place this in your thing and we're going to monitor it. We're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to help you through this whole thing and kind of get up to speed on it. But we don't have to go into all that right now. Just know that this is going to help you reduce your electrical bill. Fair? Okay. So there's not quite the chasm that we have to bridge with the former conversation, right? And so early adoption is kind of rough on in a lot of ways, but it doesn't have to be quite that steep of a learning curve for folks. That's kind of
No, it makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you went through that. And people might be listening to this and they'll be like, "Oh, who cares? Like, I don't own a business. This isn't going to have much of an impact on me." But I think it's just important to understand that this is kind of where things are going. Like, I like that you mentioned AI here because I'm sure that's going to be used in terms of like monitoring the heat, in terms of like a smart thermometer. I get a little bit nervous when I hear smart thermometer because that means that anybody could shut it off at any time. And, that's probably one of the risks to this at this point anyways. But like, if you just really think about it, it just makes so much sense because especially for somebody in Canada like myself, where I spend 4 or 5 months every year. And I liked how you called it a dumb heater, my furnace. Like my furnace runs all day long here because it's so cold outside. So the only thing that furnace is doing right now is generating heat. I pay a significant electricity bill, utility bill every month to heat my furnace or to heat my house, but it does nothing for me other than just heats my house. So if I have that option of the dumb furnace versus a smart furnace, which is what you were talking about there, where it's the exact same thing. It's a unit that produces heat, sends it up through the ducts of my house and heats this house. Except now, instead of that just going to waste, we're actually mining Bitcoin with that. So it's the process of the computational power with the ASIC chips that's generating the heat, which flows to the house. And because you're mining Bitcoin, you're actually going to get, as Bodhi mentioned, some sort of a subsidy or a rebate off of your energy bill because you're mining Bitcoin with it. And maybe just to go back, because I mentioned that you could put all the electricity and energy into it as much as you want to, and maybe never get a return for that. But there are ways in terms of like a Bitcoin mining pool where it's a lot more consistent, where I know how much I'm going to get back every month based on the pool that I'm in and how much Bitcoin that pool is winning and how much prorated I'm going to get from that. So it's kind of a no-brainer once people just kind of understand what's happening here. And you mentioned the new frontier, and that's exactly what it is. Because if, just like Bitcoin, if people looked at this objectively and said, you can heat your house, you can pay for it and get nothing back, or you can heat your house and you can pay for it, except you're going to get a rebate back every month. Every single person, residential, commercial, would always choose option B there. But just because it's so new and nobody knows what's going on here, that's why it hasn't really taken off like, it should. But that's just how technology works.
Yeah, I mean, we know. I mean, most people who listen to your show, who listen to this show, I mean, there's a lot of folks who know how early we are, and they know that this is not going to be stopped. They know that that we're early, and still there might be some some kind of like deer in the headlights learning curve issues with this Bitcoin mining. Well, one of the things I love about, kind of being entrepreneurial minded is like, you have to be fearless. You have to just sort of like, like ready, shoot, aim, It's like
Shoot, then
sometimes
aim.
it's like, like, oh, well, I had to jump in before like, if you're going to be a podcaster, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but you know, I'm going to find out. Right. Um, I think this would be a great time to just let me read
Sure.
this is about a half a page or so of, and I'm reading, and this guy who is Tyler Stevens, I can't say enough about him. He's one of the owners of the thing. He is a former rocket thermal engineer, uh, organizer of the hash rate heat punks, and co-founder of the space in Denver. If you can follow him on Noster, you can follow him on X. Let me read what he wrote right here. A call to action, be a part of the heat revolution. This book is not the end of the conversation. It's the beginning. The future of hash rate heating depends on all of us. Whether you're a curious Bitcoiner, a business owner, an HVAC technician, an engineer, or someone who just loves the idea of a heater that makes money, there's a place for you in this movement. Here's how you can start. For Bitcoiners, explore whether the hash rate heating system could make sense for your home or business. Advocate for products that integrate mining and heating. Become a heat punk by building and educating others. For tradespeople, learn about this technology. The heating and cooling industry is evolving, and skilled electricians, plumbers, and HVAC technicians will be critical in bringing these systems to life. Be the person who can confidently say, yes, I know how to install and service that. For businesses and innovators, the market is wide open for creative solutions. Develop products, launch pilot programs, and take risks. Whether you're a heating company, an ASIC manufacturer, or an entrepreneur with a vision, this industry is ripe for disruption. For mega miners, don't fear heat reuse. Embrace it. Leverage your experience and infrastructure to lead the way. Collaborate with nearby heat demand and symbiotic partnerships to strengthen your business. So, you know, he's basically calling everybody to like, hey, like, check this out, learn about this. For anybody in the living in the future, space, I am interested in trying to get a PDF version of that book for you. If you're in the living in the future group, if not, it's available at that book is available at the Brains website that I mentioned earlier. So
Super
we're
cool.
we're about 40 minutes in now, Jor.
I think it's for me. I just want to kind of share my journey through the whole energy thing here. Before I got into Bitcoin, like I literally knew nothing about energy, not at all. I knew that when he flipped the light switch, the lights came on. When he shut it off, the lights went off. That's it. But like after being in Bitcoin, after learning about mining, after learning about energy, the whole world is based around energy. And I think that we've kind of been taught over, not taught, but like brainwashed into believing that the more, electricity costs we have, the more energy costs, the more carbon we produce. It's like a bad thing. Human innovation and the way we've evolved has been from energy. We're not moving forward without energy. And so I think it's important, just if you're like a casual Bitcoiner, you're thinking about maybe how you can implement this into your life. I would say just start paying attention to this stuff, because you're going to be fascinated with how this all ties together in terms of Bitcoin and energy. And even you'll just notice small things around the house. Like for me, again, it's winter time right here. So last week it was like minus 40 degrees. And so you're always looking for ways to be a little bit warmer. And so even up until like last year, I'm 35, 36 years old now. And up until last year, like I had no idea about any of this. But, I cooked a pizza a couple weeks ago, and the energies, I've already paid for the energy to make the pizza. And, up until this point, I just would have shut the door on the oven because my pizza's ready. But when you understand energy, it's like, okay, well, that heat has already been generated. I've already paid for that heat. So why not just leave the door of this oven open and let it disperse throughout the house to kind of subsidize my energy costs?
Right.
So just like small things like that, once you're thinking in this sense, like it kind of changes the way you think about everything. Everything is energy, and we evolve because of energy. We need energy.
Yeah, we do. We do. I mean, it's either we're smart about how we use it or we're not. And this checks the box completely of people who are like, you know, very, very concerned about energy conservation or, green technology and stuff. This is they should be running to this if that's their
Yes,
biggest concern.
exactly. I heard somebody say that last week. They said we're kind of moving out of the stage where everybody thinks that Bitcoin is bad for the environment. We're going to move into a point now where people are going to say, if you're not utilizing Bitcoin mining, that's bad for the environment. If you're wasting energy, that's bad for the environment. Because that's what that is. If you think about an oven, if you think about a furnace, that's essentially paying for something that's going to waste. Obviously, it's keeping you alive, but like, why not utilize that for something else that has for heat, that has for like, just to kind of go off into a slightly different direction here. But like if you think about the oil fields here, whether you're in Montana or North Dakota, South Dakota, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the the methane gas that gets flared off of the rigs, usually that just goes to waste, or they have to pay like a carbon tax here in Canada because of that. Whereas with these new capabilities and the technology being um, created, they can actually take that methane gas and mine Bitcoin with it. So instead of it going into the atmosphere or the company having to incur more costs to dispose of that methane gas or burn it off, they can actually capture that, mine Bitcoin. So instead of having to pay, they're actually making money. So all of this stuff, when you understand it, and when you're, if you're bold enough to take the risk to jump into this industry, there's a lot that can be done and a lot that can be improved in our day-to-day lives and our businesses too.
No, it's very right, 100%, right? I mean, okay, so I'm going to say something that I said to the group. I only said one thing to that group of people because I am like green as the grass. I'm the turtle, right? I'm probably the oldest guy that was in that room. Bob Burnett was in that room, and I think he's younger than me, but he is an OG in the Bitcoin mining space. This guy is amazing. But what I said to them, because there was some guys that were there were developers, there's software devs and Bitcoin devs and all these guys that were there, mostly men, but there were some women too. And I kept hearing about with this, and we just have to accomplish this, and we have to educate, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, and you really need to. And then I heard, I heard one of the guys who was one of the main speakers. He said, well, I showed up here, guys, and I didn't even know that, that you guys right here in this room, that you had that product or you came with this thing. That's like a big, that's like everybody was like, whoa, look at that. Like the What's Miner, the brand new What's Miner product. And what came out of that comment was, you guys, and this is coming from one of the guys who knows what he's doing. He's talking to these other guys, and he says, I didn't even know what you guys were making, and it's like, and so the comment kind of came around to, you need to do a better job of marketing yourselves, like you're not even, like we don't even know what you guys are doing. So the takeaway there, and this is what I said, was, having been a business owner, I know that in the startup phase, I wear all the hats. I wear this hat. I wear this hat. I'm on the floor doing the work. I'm up here talking to the, insurance adjuster. I'm talking to the homeowner. I do everything until I get wore out and I can't do it all. And then as a business owner, I can't control it all, right? The best thing for me to do is like delegate things, delegate what I don't want to do, because I'm not good at that. I usually am not good at things that I don't like doing. So I said to them, I said, hey, you're sitting in a room full of people that are amazing, right? There's a lot of gifted people here. So there's stuff that you don't like doing. reach out to some of these folks. And there's a whole lot of people in that room that need things that other people in that room don't have. And so my encouragement to other people listening to this is like, get into the space, learn what people are doing, because you bring some skills. There are people in the Living in the Future community that have some amazing skills. We know this group enough to know that there's some bomb diggity skills out there in this group. And I would say your skill set is uniquely suited to some of the needs of some of these people who are trying to develop industry-changing products right now. I will go out on a limb right now, Jor, and I will tell you that the heating and cooling industry will be changed forever just by Bitcoin mining. The plumbing industry will be changed forever by the Bitcoin mining industry. What is the ripple effect of that? It's not just like, oh, some plumbers are going to be changed by this. No, I mean, these guys are going to install, they're going to learn how to do this. They're going to install these things. And these businesses, the business owners of these and the hotels and all these mega corporations are going to want this in a big way. And the way to get in on this is to just kind of like start studying it, start doing some work. It's real simple.
I think it's hard for people though at this point to like fully buy into that without having a good understanding of everything. Like I have a couple electricians and plumbers in my life who have been talking about Bitcoin mining for the last couple of years. And I said, this is something you should consider at least exploring a little bit, because there's going to be every house here in Canada, every shop, every business, every hotel, as you said, everybody's going to be utilizing this stuff, and it's not going to be a plug and play kind of thing. They're going to have to be outfitted, because, as the bigger your miner is, the more computing power you have, the more of a, like, I'm not an electrician, I'm not going to pretend to be, but more ampage or more electricity that you would need to, to run that miner. So all of these houses, all of these businesses are all going to need to be refitted to allow and to align with this smart technology. And so it's a big industry, massive opportunity.
Right.
It's just that everybody's so busy right now. Like if you talk to any plumber, every electrician, they're flying off the handles. There's not enough trades. They're busy with what they have, and they don't have the time of the day to like be learning this. So
yeah. So interesting you said that. It's like a lot of things, like it's going to be slow adoption, gradually and then suddenly, probably. But if you look at, like, we've 4 or 5 years ago, I saw that the average age for an HVAC technician is like 60. They're in their 60s. The average age. Okay, so there's a whole new, right? We all know that the trades are kind of where people need to be going, or we should know that there's going to be a humongous need for that. And those guys are going to be able to charge really well for their work. and that whole mindset of the way things have been, that will leave. That's leaving right now. But I know of at least one plumbing company where the guys they're scheduling their work on their terms. They don't work. They don't work Wednesdays, Fridays, or Saturdays or Sundays. They work. Wow. They work Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. And you can't call them and get them on the phone. You have to call. You have to get on their website and schedule the work on their website according to their terms, right? They can determine their terms and what they get paid, etc. Right? So this is a whole new way of doing business for the service trades like this. So I
think that's a good lesson, Bodie. I just want to stop you there, because I think that's a really good lesson for anybody out there, regardless of if you're a trade, a plumber, electrician, whatever it is that you do. I think you should be stacking skills in that area. Kind of going back to your title here. I love that, because it's so true. Because the more valuable you become to others, the more ability you have to be on your own terms. And that's something I talk about on my channel all the time, is like, you could have as much Bitcoin as you want to, But if you're still spending all of your time, every one of your days working for somebody else under their rules, you're kind of, you're not a fully sovereign individual. And I think that the more skill you generate, the more valuable you are to others. You can set your hours, you can set your days, you can set your rates, you can set what you want to be paid in. And if you're a Bitcoiner and you have the ability to say, hey, if you want to use my services, you got to pay me in Bitcoin. And if you can't figure that out, I'm sorry, I got other people who will. That's kind of the point you want to get to in your career with anything, is that be so good that you're the one setting the terms. And like the difference between somebody on the flip side of that and somebody who's setting their own terms and on their own, running their own life is a major difference in happiness.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's you set your own terms, you know what you can do, and you only do that. Um, it's I would just it was so encouraging. Let me say this. It was so encouraging to see that there's actually people out there inventing things that aren't like I didn't know what to expect. Like I said in the beginning, it was kind of like, sharks in the water, or is it like, like people are friendly and open about what they're trying to do. It was the latter. And that was very, very good to see. Um, I'm a little bit overwhelmed thinking about some of the stuff that I'm trying to develop, because it's like I got a lot of work to do. But the beauty is that it's an opportunity. I have an opportunity to do a lot of work, and this is kind of where a lot of us are right now. So we can segue into something else other than the Bitcoin mining thing. I'd love to get to, I'd love to get to a question here from Buck 52,000. Go ahead and take that one, Jor.
So the question says, here's one for you. Trying to get my father to set aside 1 million sats for each of his 3 grandchildren. Recommendations? He knows nothing about Bitcoin. Well, if he knows nothing about Bitcoin, I think that it's probably going to be a complete waste of your time to try to educate him, before that. I think the thing that I would just say is like, just objectively show him, if you would have done this 5 years ago, if you would have done this 10 years ago, if you would have left that, whatever that would be, 3 million sats, $3,000. If you would have left that $3,000 that you're putting towards your grandkids right now, if you would have left that in like a savings account, like most people would, it would be worth $3,100, maybe $3,050. But if you put that into Bitcoin 10 years ago, it would be worth $1 million, maybe. So just kind of understand that that it's going to keep going in that direction. If he has like a basic understanding of money in terms of like what money printing does and how it devalues somebody's savings, then he should understand that it's not going to grow very much. And with Bitcoin, you could just say like, yes, it's gone up. Yes, it's gone down. But over the last 10 years, it has performed at a 60% annual return on average. Some years higher, some days it went down. But when you're talking about your grandkids, it's not something you have to be emotional with. You just say, we're going to put this in here. We're going to not care when it goes up. We're going to not care when it goes down. We're just going to leave it here for the next 15 years. And I guarantee you that this in Bitcoin is going to much, much, much outperform in dollars.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't waste any time like trying to tell them about Bitcoin and explain it to them. Just show them objectively like what's happened in the last 10 years and say this is going to be a long-term thing. So yes, it goes up and down day to day, month to month. But over the years and over the decades, this thing has outperformed literally every other asset that exists out there. So why not?
Absolutely. 100%. Anybody who's panicking right now, it's like, hey, get your seatbelt on. This train is not wrecking. We're not going off the rails here. Just sit down, breathe, understand where we are. We're early, and you've got a long way to go. Stay humble, stack sats, and do some studying. Right? We keep studying, keep stacking the skills. Right here and right here. Whatever we can learn how to do. Just this is the place we're at.
I think the other thing I would say there, and this is an important lesson for, I think, anybody who's getting into Bitcoin right now, is that if you buy any amount of Bitcoin, you should go into this with the intention that you're going to hold on to that Bitcoin for at least 4 years, because you could point to any time in history. You could find any specific date and range of dates. And yes, sometimes it's gone up 2,000%. Sometimes it's gone down 80%. But over a 4-year period, if you've ever bought Bitcoin and held on to it for at least 4 years up until now, you have been in the profits. You've been ahead. So you should never like buy Bitcoin expecting like something to happen in the near future. That's not what this thing does. This is a long-term asset. And so when you're talking about grandkids and children, like what a perfect vehicle for that. Where, you know, if it's a 5-year-old, he's not going to want to cash it out in 2 years anyway. So just put it into a fund, protect it, and leave it in there for 10 or 20 years. You never regret that. That's for sure.
Absolutely. 100%. That's what, you know, and that's the kind of vision that you need to have when we're talking about generations of Bitcoin. We are the first generation of Bitcoiners. I mean, in a group, because it started while we were alive. But if we stack that and you save that, and that goes back into cold storage, not to ever be seen again, right? That can be that will be off the market. That will be someplace that nobody, no BlackRock, no government, no nothing can get to that. And your you know, like your job really is to like educate your family how valuable something like that is. And you know, and you know, some people are different, right? You know, I have to spoon feed for some people, and you have to, you know, so we're all on this journey together. But that's the beauty of it is we've got something like, you know, this different media. Everything's decentralized now. You know, like we're out here talking about this, and who listens to us? You know, less than 100 people maybe, but you know, over the time, that's going to grow. It's going to grow, and we're going to be you know,
Smart
maybe
people listen to us.
maybe, you know what, you know, I hope someday that your grandkids watch this video, Jor. I mean, you know, like that kind of thing. You know, you need to think out like 200 years, really. You know, have that vision, right? And if you don't have it, then find a way to get it, because it's a beautiful thing to really kind of like, you know, like I won't ever drive a new truck. You know, I love driving trucks, but now there's so many more important things than that.
I think you kind of sparked something in my brain there a little bit, and you said something about grandkids. And you know, one of the focuses of the shows is especially for baby boomers who, you know, who are lucky enough to have a size of their investment account that's going to be left for their kids and their kids. And that's what we recommend putting into Bitcoin. We don't tell people to, you know, if you're dependent on it to live and to pay your rent and to eat, that's not what you put into Bitcoin. It's the generational stuff. But when you think about it like that, and that's kind of the reason why I first started doing like a show and a podcast, because I was like, you know what, even if this fails, even if you know, I don't make a dime off of this, worst case scenario here is that my grandkids one day are going to have the ability to watch this and not just hear stories about Jor or Bodhi, but like actually see them and listen to them and see their, you know, emotions. And you can kind of sense a little bit, at least through the screen, of what kind of person they were like. So I would just encourage anybody out there. Not everybody thinks of themselves as like a content creator, and I actually hate that term myself. Yeah. But I want people to think about, when we're thinking about like you know, a furnace, and instead of like a dumb furnace, you want to have a smart furnace where you're already doing it, but instead now you're getting a bit of a rebate back. So what I want people to think about is, regardless of what industry you're in, you have knowledge, you have value that you can give to others. And we're kind of like moving into this new world now where the people who want that information are going to find it. And so don't ever think that you don't have, you know, knowledge or expertise that the internet could use. It could. And there are people out there in all these different industries who could use whatever knowledge you have and skills that you have. And what better place to do it than something like this, where you can help people. Plus, worst case, again, if nothing comes from it, your grandkids are going to be able to have a better look at like what kind of person you are and listen to your voice. I just think that that's so cool.
I love this. I was looking at the comments, and Rick Costa, he loved the old bomb diggity, Yeah, man. Well, you're I listen to something, and I actually I love getting fired up about stuff sometimes. But one of the things that I listened to recently, and I want to share this real quick. I listened to Marty Bent as he interviewed Ian Carroll, and they're having this conversation and stuff. But one of the things that Ian said on that podcast that was really good, and he said, you know, we cannot just let things just roll. I mean, if the things we have learned something in this last cycle of elections that the American people, for example, are like, when they are like, aware and they are engaged, like we are not going to let our election get rigged, get rugged, get screwed. We've had enough of that. We had enough of that. And so just kind of like transferring that into this conversation, I would just say that, look, the things that Jor is explaining right here, this is the time to really like step on the gas, man. We cannot just be like, oh, we got an election, we got a guy that we think is going to do some great stuff. Wow, pass me the popcorn. No, like get the coffee on like high. Let's stay engaged here. The break is not an option. We are full steam ahead here. So, like, let's rock and roll. Let's go with this thing. And I mean, definitely Bitcoin, mining, maybe, studying. Yeah. Stacking skills. Yeah. Engaging, starting businesses. Let's rock and roll, man, because this is, on the one hand, we've got crazy stuff being disclosed, Doge, and like just evil getting sunlight big time. And it's like, whoa. Every day it's like something new. But like, we have got to just like rock this thing, because now is the time. And the future generations are going to be like, wow, we're going to be like, we have the opportunity right here to be like the greatest generation. And to me, the greatest generation was the ones who were who were in World War II, who were like engaged, like boom, they were like, the whole country in the US was like totally engaged, making stuff for the war effort, right? Everybody thought that the war effort was the thing to be involved in, and they were like passionate about like working in that. So we've learned since then, it's like, the war, the beginning of the forever wars and all that stuff, right? That was totally bad. But the engagement part was just so like, when people get woke up and they're like, I don't mean woke like the traditional myth, you know what I mean? Like they're awake and they're like engaged. Like, we know some things now. We've been through some pain. We've been through some stuff. Let's do this right. Let's not ever have our rights taken away again. We want to have paper ballots or whatever it is you want to say, but we definitely need to be starting more businesses and really getting kind of like, instead of watching the world go by, but getting engaged, drinking the coffee, chopping the wood, doing the things every day. And Bitcoiners are like perfect at this, right? And we have the landscape, the context of all this stuff is kind of like fading in the background. All the movie set, all the whole facade of it all is like going away. It's like, you got to pinch yourself. Do you want to put your shoe on top of your head to make sure you're not AI now? Do whatever you got to do. But we are totally like on fire here, and it's not. It just gets. Here I am excited about this, but
I love it.
yeah, it's just now is the time. We got to strike now, and I love that this Bitcoin is like the money of peace, right? It's the money of peace. It's not the money of war. And like everybody's worried about like, oh, the crypto and all the like stuff is being people are trying to get Trump to do the what. Trump is a human being. He makes mistakes too, but and we don't have to go into that. I mean, we probably can see some of the obvious things that he's done recently is like, maybe not so much. But you know what? He's a human being. He's going to make mistakes too. But he plays a very high stakes game, and he's doing some amazing things. And so hats off to him. We just have to be loud voice here, a loud voice, and let him know that, I like the, you know, the government efficiency stuff. Okay. You're going to ruffle some feathers. You're going to definitely piss some people off, and no doubt. But we have a voice here to let him know that Bitcoin is the way. This is the way,
Yeah, I got that was well said. I think you're absolutely right. I think that now, and people are starting to become aware of that. If you think about where we are today versus 4 years ago, even you said woke there, so we'll say woke again. People are woke in the right way. People are understanding what's going on here. They don't like it. They've had enough. They're taking matters into their own hands. And I really believe that back in World War II, if we had the technology that we have today and the information that we have today, I don't think World War II would have even happened. At that time, there was a lot of propaganda. It was the TV, the radio, the newspaper. And you can see it now, even though this mainstream media is starting to fade away, they're still trying to divide people. They're trying to push narratives. It's not working quite as effectively, but back then it did. And that's why people were fired up. They wanted to fight for their country. And I think that we are soldiers right now in this war. The war, I think, has been going on for several years now, maybe several decades. And everybody here is part of this war. It is an information war. It's not being fought with guns and bullets and planes anymore. It's all information. And a couple different things I wanted to mention here, Bodie, was that number one, with Trump, even with the government we have, none of this works without Bitcoin. None of it, because
right.
Policies change, governments change. In 4 years, we might have a different, talking puppet head up there. They might change their mind. None of this works without Bitcoin. Number two, Bodhi said that Bitcoin is the currency of peace, which it is. And why is it the currency of peace? Is because how has every war been funded? By governments who have the ability to print money. That's it. That's the only reason. They're all been banker wars. They print money. They fund the wars. They take a portion of themselves. They have no issues killing human beings. Sickening. With Bitcoin, they can't print it. They can't fund wars if they can't print money. And number three is that in times like this, when you have overreaching governments, when you have people in positions that you don't necessarily trust, you need something like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only asset that you can truly own. The only asset that you can truly own. And you might say, well, no, that's not true because I have a gold coin or a stash of gold in my basement. And yeah, you own that, but somebody breaks in your house tomorrow with a gun, you don't have that gold anymore. You might say, yeah, well, I have a piece of land that I have the title to. And I would say, well, try stopping paying property taxes on that and see who owns that land. Whereas with Bitcoin, if you do it properly, it takes a lot of time, but if you do it properly, you can set yourself up and your family up where if somebody comes in your house, they don't know you have Bitcoin. B, if you do it properly, there's nothing that they can do to extract it from you. You know why? Because you can store it in here, or you can store it a million miles away while still maintain the ownership of that Bitcoin and the legal right to move that Bitcoin. So important subjects here, very important, I think.
Oh, it tremendously. I love it when we get on a thing here. We're over an hour, but I'm like, I'm on fire, man. Let's do this thing. But yeah, kind of bringing it back to humility. It's every day. It's an everyday thing. It's kind of to me, it's sort of like a way of life, but it's also something that I have to kind of balance with my faith, and it's not an idol for me. It's not something that's going to save me. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's knowledge, right? And you said it's, people have trouble, like, well, it's, what if it gets, taken away, or, is it really a thing, and it's like, well, okay, I'm getting now that my knowledge base of Bitcoin mining is like more than just like, like flat line, I've got like a quarter of an inch of knowledge now, like just barely a tiny bit. I'm still a pleb, I'm still a turtle, I'm still all these things, right? But I understand better now how Bitcoin is bound by energy. And that's something that Jeff Booth taught us. He said those things, and other people have said it too, but it's bound by energy. It's a wall of energy. There is no way you're going to there's no way you're going to scam, there's no way you're going to break Bitcoin, because it's bound by a wall of energy. It has been solidified and protected, encrypted, that some of the smartest people on earth cannot get through this thing. They cannot break it. They cannot scam it. We have seen some of the ugliest, scammiest, worst stuff, and there's probably going to be more coming of things, evil things. And I'm not talking just Bitcoin. I'm talking about other stuff too. But in Bitcoin, in cryptocurrency stuff, and do I need to mention names? I don't think I do. I think you guys have heard enough of this. You've seen enough. If you're studying, if you're listening, you're awake, that the sunlight and time and track record shows what is good and what is evil. Do we have to go further than that? I don't think we do. I think we know. And if you have to go further than that, then you haven't studied enough Bitcoin.
Yeah, and when you say Bitcoin's bound by energy, Bitcoin's secure and encrypted and cannot be messed with, I think a really good example of this is like Bitcoin is very transparent. You can look at anybody's, there's no names attached to it. It's, what is it, pseudonymous, something like that?
Pseudonym.
Yeah, there's no names attached to it, but you can go into any Bitcoin wallet and you can look at the balance in there, and you can see all the information, all the transactions, how much Bitcoin's in there. And we know, holy cow, Arnie, we know the balances in these wallets, and you can see it there. And it's like it'd be like walking into like a building, and there's a whole bunch of like gold bars looking at you, but they're behind a wall, and you can see it there, but there's nothing that you can do to get it. And this is a perfect example of like, you can see these wallet balances of these, like, let's say Satoshi's wallet, he has 900,000 Bitcoin in there. You can see it, but why hasn't it moved? Like, that's, tens of hundreds of billions of dollars worth of purchasing power. If somebody could easily hack this thing, why haven't they done it yet? So,
well, they've been
you don't
trying
have to understand everything about like how it all works. You can be sure, because you can see all these Bitcoin. It's very transparent, very viewable, but that there's nothing that you can do to actually take that from somebody.
Well, this is what I love, right? I mean, I love it. It's finite. It's totally open source, right? And this is the beautiful part about this community, is that it's open source. It's full transparency. It's like, here it is. Yeah, break this, like, and when you see that everybody's pretty much open about just about everything, that, like, so open source development, you can't go wrong with open source development, because the people who are developing open source software know that everybody else is going to be able to see everything that they do. So it's kind of like, okay, here you go. I built this, and it's like, here it is.
Find holes in it.
And the OpenSats, foundation, I think, Odell runs, like, I mean, I don't have much money to give, but I'm giving money to them because I'm like, these guys are doing some amazing things, and this is making history right here. So, we're early, but it's beautiful to see the transparency. It's beautiful to see, this wall of energy that bounds this stuff. And it's just I think one of the other things I heard this week that I'll mention is that it's so like the peace of knowing that the stuff that I've saved is not going anywhere, and it's not going down in value long term, right? It's going to go up and down. It's volatile. That's what it is. It does that. That's one of the great things about it. Um, it's not a, you know, it's not a fiat anything. So anyway, I would just, we've had some great conversation. Anything you want to like keep touching on here, because I would love to just mention a few things that I've seen here.
Sure. I'll let you do that. I'll just kind of round that out. I think that it's when people hear that Bitcoin's transparent, I think they get a little bit turned off because they're like, well, I don't want everybody knowing my balance. I don't want everybody seeing my transactions. And I think it's important to note that Bitcoin adds transparency to the people who need it and gives privacy to the people who need privacy too, or who want privacy, I should say. And so if you think about a government who, they collect taxes, they do all these different things to bring money in. They spend it in the worst way possible. We know that, but we can't really verify. We can't see where that money's going to. We might see something on the TV that says, "Oh, the U.S. government just sent $2.5 billion to Ukraine for this or that or weapons." Nobody knows where that goes. Nobody can follow that. So if you had like a transparent way of doing that, that's what Bitcoin provides. It provides transparency to the people who need it. Plus, there's tools for people like me and you and everybody watching this to actually transact privately without it being on chain and recorded forever for everybody to see. So it's a perfect combination of it adds transparency to the people who need it, and it gives privacy to the people who want it. So I saw a question there. What was that last one?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a laugh about this one. I love that. But here's the question. Do you think a 12-word seed phrase and passphrase is safe? Let me just touch on that real quick. I would say yes, it is. Go ahead, Jor.
Yeah, I think it's safe. I think you got to keep in mind here. So a 12-word seed phrase is essentially when you create a Bitcoin wallet. Let's say that I downloaded a wallet on my phone, which is what most people kind of start with. You can go to the App Store and you can just download a Bitcoin wallet. I would say be very careful with the wallets that you download, though, because I've been hearing a couple different things in terms of like people going to download a Bitcoin wallet from the Apple Store or the Google Store, and it's actually like a malicious app. So always make sure that you're downloading the right app. That's the first thing I would say. But you could download an app easily for free. And so that's your wallet. That's your signing device is your phone, and you have a wallet built into your phone. So every wallet, every device has a backup phrase in case something were to happen to my phone. Like if I lost my phone, if it stopped working, whatever. I could use my 12 words essentially to restore my Bitcoin wallet into a new phone or a new device. And so the problem with 12 words is that it's written down on a piece of paper or steel, and it's kind of just in plain text. So if somebody comes across those 12 words, they now essentially have your Bitcoin. They have the keys to it, which means they can move it out of your wallet and move it into their own wallet. So they essentially own your Bitcoin at that point. So the passphrase is essentially a 13th word in this case, where you generate a passphrase or you create a passphrase, and then even if somebody came across your 12 words, they can't do anything without that 13th word. They can't access anything there. So I do think it's safe. I think it's kind of a layer up from like a normal Bitcoin wallet in terms of just having 12-word backup. I think it's a level up, but I think there's about 3 or 4 different levels on top of that you can still get to in terms of like a multi-sig, in terms of encryption, stuff like that. But it's a pretty good place to start. The only thing that I would say is don't ever lose that passphrase, because if you lose the 13th word, your Bitcoin's gone. Nobody has it, but you can't access it, so it's gone.
Yep.
So just be very careful with it.
Well said. Yeah, so yeah, just like you said, I would just add that, the 12-word passphrase or the 12-word
Recovery
seed
phrase
is that's the beginning, right? That's the beginning of the security, right? And then we know from some of the other things that in other shows that you've done, that there's some really good ways to work toward to manage and to protect your wealth so that it can stay preserved. Okay. Um, and you can check out some of the other videos. We will link to Jore's channel in the show notes here. Um, and
Yeah, I talk about this stuff a lot. It's kind of what I've fallen into is focusing on security, which I like because I think it's the most overlooked aspect of Bitcoin. And there's really not enough people talking about security and encryption and inheritance stuff. It's just everybody loves seeing the number go up, but your Bitcoin isn't worth anything if you're not protecting it properly.
yeah, you talk a lot about, how to earn Bitcoin and different ways of doing that. I've recently become a fan of the Fold. I'm just using the Fold debit card right now,
Nice.
and I'm going to start paying off some large bills, the mortgage and some other bills like that with it. So, and we're all anybody who's signed up for, like, and again, we don't get anything for mentioning this, but anybody who's signed up to kind of be on the waiting list for the Fold credit card, that is I think that's another some other layers of incentive or benefit that they're going to try to offer for that. But so far, I've been stacking fairly well with the Fold with the card that I have. So one question I do have for you, and that is, I heard I was listening to Odell and Marty. And they were talking about the green wallet. Have you heard of the green wallet? Because I was looking into
Blockstream?
that. I believe it is Blockstream. Yeah. Any idea about the green wallet? It's a hot wallet that they have an app for.
Yeah.
Any experience with that? Anybody in the chat want to chime in on that?
I think with the green wallet, it's actually pretty cool because you can, let's say you had like a Blockstream Jade, which is like a hardware device, one of these things that you can generate your 12 words or your private key from that's fully offline. So it's like a Blockstream Jade. It's the same kind of thing as this cold card here. But the nice thing about that is you can actually use like the green mobile wallet or the green application on your computer where it can just be a watch only wallet. So you don't have to have your device. You don't have to ever have it connected to the internet. There's no ability for somebody, even if they got access to your laptop, they couldn't move your Bitcoin because they need your device. That's kind of the key to these things, is to move any Bitcoin out of your wallet, you need to have one of these and sign the transaction. So that's the nice separation there. If somebody's looking at like a hardware device, is it takes it offline. So if you want to move any Bitcoin, you actually have to sign the transaction from one of these. So the green wallet, you can actually use it as a watch only wallet where you can look at your balances, you can see your transactions, your UTXOs. It's kind of similar to Sparrow, I think, in that sense, but it's directly tied to like the manufacturer. So it's a good option. I think that you got to be a little bit careful when you're plugging devices into a laptop that have the private key attached to it. But I don't think you have to do that with the green. I think it's just a watch. You can use it as a watch only wallet where you can still see all your balances, that the Bitcoin's still there, but there's no ability for somebody to take your Bitcoin without your device.
So I've heard that too. They were mentioning that you can use it as it can be a receiving
Yes.
wallet, and there's some we've got Living Good with Sabian is saying that the green wallet is awesome. You can hold Bitcoin. Is that LBT? That's liquid
Yeah.
Bitcoin or USDT liquid? Yeah,
It's pretty cool. It is.
Okay. Yeah, I've been having some.
Liquid's taken a lot of crap, I think, through the years. And I fell victim of that myself. I just kind of heard that it was, I didn't hear great things about it, so I never explored it. But I've been using Liquid more. I keep some of my Bitcoin on Liquid. It's kind of out of the scope, I think, to talk about today in terms of how it works and what the difference is between Bitcoin and Liquid. But it's very similar to like a Lightning, where it's not layer one. Everything, there's Bitcoin layer one. That's the transparent. That's the Bitcoin network we talk about, layer one. And then there's all these things built on top of that, which is like, using Bitcoin layer one as like the foundation. But Lightning's built on top of it. Liquid's built on top of it. eCash is built on top of it. I would argue that an exchange is a layer two because they actually don't, move Bitcoin around every time you send them money. But it's pretty cool. You can use Liquid to be much more private with your transaction because it kind of breaks the chain of your on-chain movement, and then send it from Liquid to your new on-chain address. So it's definitely useful. It's something I'm going to be using more of in the future, and I've been pretty impressed with lately. So that's what I'd say on that.
Okay. Well, I would encourage anyone who has questions, they want anybody to kind of help them walk through some of this stuff, to reach out. We're gonna look at the show notes. We'll have some links to some of the things that I've mentioned here in the video. Some of the stuff with brains. The book, some mining stuff. Also, some questions about kind of like how do we get going, and kind of I have got some Bitcoin, or I want to give some Bitcoin to someone. If you have some questions about that, that is something that that there's a group, the Bitcoin Citadel, that we're kind of working with some people who are very knowledgeable about that, and have been very helpful to me. And I would just kind of let you know that's a good place to start. I mean, these people that are really high integrity signal, very interested in doing the right thing by people, are not going to ask you for your seed phrase or your passphrase or anything. They're kind of like helping you, educate you as you take control of your wealth, and how to say this, really kind of like helping teach you to have your own bank level security in your house, under your watch, right? And when you have questions about, like, oh no, how do I keep all this kind of organized and do all that stuff? Yeah, they address stuff like that too. And that's what I say. Once you kind of start at the base and you work your way up, then as you work your way up, you realize that, like there's some more stuff that I don't have to keep track of all that stuff. In fact, I don't even have to have anything in my house that has anything Bitcoin related on it. And yet my stuff is still kept in cold storage because I am smart and I've studied enough to know that I don't have to have all that. So wrench attack, no wrench attack, whatever. I've got my stack in cold storage. Hey, you want my wallet? Here's, want some food? What do you want? You just take care of business, and your life goes on because you were listening, you were smart enough. And that's the beauty of a community like, living in the future. And I've mentioned that before, but the people here, a lot of the people who watch this channel know that, you don't want to just be out there on your own when it comes time to, like, hey, I got something, it's valuable, and I don't know what to do. Take the time now. Go down the rabbit hole, one baby step at a time, right? I mean, I don't know how else to say that, Jor.
Yeah, I think just you said it very well. I think that Bitcoin Citadel, I would say, is probably for a little bit more advanced users. Somebody who's been in Bitcoin for a while, they're looking to maybe move their Bitcoin into a very safe place, whether that's just like the first step of a hardware wallet, whether you want to do a multi-sig, whether you want like encryption and inheritance built into it. There's so many layers that you have to worry about within Bitcoin. I think that's why it's so daunting for a lot of people. But just understand that it is a very slow process. Even if you have like the need to do it today, you should probably take it very slow, make sure you cover all your bases, make sure you have a good understanding of it. But the one thing I would say is, like, on my, my Patreon, I think for somebody out there who's just like wanting to get a little bit more information about this before they really dive into it, there's a course on my channel called 365 Days of Bitcoin. And it really walks people through, like, from the start of, like, here's a Lightning wallet. I'll send you some sats. You get to receive that. You learn about, the layer 1, layer 2, how to buy, how to send it, things to watch out for when you're sending. There's honestly so much stuff to know. And the thing about that is that it's all kind of available online for free. But the problem is that people don't really know what they're looking for. They don't know the order that they need to go into. And so that's why this 365 days is so, I think, impactful and going to be impactful, is because it goes in that order. It kind of explains things as you need to know it without getting too far ahead of yourself. So I think that's a great option if anybody is kind of wanting to, take this stuff a little bit more seriously. It's there's been a lot of good feedback from that course so far. So this is day 58, I believe, today. So you sign up today, it's $20 a month. You get 58 videos right off the start. And I think that should keep you pretty busy for a while. So all the videos are about 10, 15 max minutes long every day. And we haven't missed a day yet. So
Yeah.
I got to film one right after this.
We need to, I need that. I'm not sure if I have that link handy, but if I don't,
I can share it in the chat right now too, actually.
Yeah, if you would share that in the chat, then I can copy that and put it in the show notes. But that is something that, as you go into this and you figure out that, like I need some help with some things here. You start looking around, you start listening to other maybe podcasts, and they've got advertisements on there of particular, one that I'm thinking of is sort of a maritime theme. I would say that you're going to find probably a better value with this group that I'm talking about right here than you will with and I'm fully willing to eat crow on that. If anybody's got something they want to push back, like feel free, let's have it. But I really do think that you're the long term with the like I said, the integrity level that I personally have met these folks, and I have a kind of a policy where I'm not going to mention anybody or anything on here that I don't have personal experience with. And I'm interested in making sure that people who listen to this show are getting good value and that they're not being, led down some, like, oh, you're going to have like a 1% or something, of your stack. It's going to cost you, no, it's very upfront, very transparent. And that's what I love about that. So anyway, thanks for sharing that link.
Yeah, it's important when you're navigating things in this space. It's pretty scary, pretty daunting. I think one thing you kind of have to keep an eye out for when you're trying to figure out whether you can trust people is a track record. Like how long have they been here? What have they been talking about? How transparent they are in terms of, how they do things. And so that's the one thing that I would say for like as an ad for Bitcoin Citadel, like number one, very intelligent people in there. Craig, I would say is the smartest person that I know within Bitcoin, and you're going to have him on your team. So through our life, we've kind of trusted bankers. We've tried to find people we trust. We trusted financial advisors. We want to find people that we can trust and who we can get value from, use their advice, and get as much value back as we give to them. And so I think that you kind of have to carry that forward now into Bitcoin, except you have to be a lot more particular because there's less insurance. There's more things that can go wrong. It still is kind of the wild, wild west phase here. But the thing that I'm proud to say is like, I've showed up on my show every morning for a year and a half now. I do live shows every day. There's chats. People can verify this. I don't miss any questions. I don't ignore anybody. I have nothing to hide. And I think that that's important when you're trying to navigate in Bitcoin is finding somebody that you can trust. Trust is the biggest component of this. So you need to find somebody who's been around time-wise. You need to find somebody who's not doing a bunch of edits and, being kind of shady in some parts. Find people who are transparent. And I'm proud to say that that's how I've approached this. I probably said some things I shouldn't have. I've made a few mistakes and, but whatever, I'm good with that. That's part of the show. That's part of what I want to be represented as. So,
yeah. Well, Jor, you're real, you're honest. You got a dog in the background, this is real life. This is what it is, and that's kind of how we live around here too. I'm just thankful that none of my kids have come barging through the door here today. But I'd love to, if there's anybody else that has any questions about anything, like go ahead and fire away. We'd love to, if you've got some, or comments about, kind of things, what we haven't covered, what you'd like to see in future episodes. feel free to either now or in the future in the comments section of the video, feel free to leave that. We're going to have more interesting content as we move forward. We're going to be doing some things that are probably not so many outside, guest interviews, although there may be some. But we'd like to bring, relevant content and that's really that's timely and that, is important, because people are going to have important questions and things and concerns that they have. I mean, this is an important topic we're talking about. So it's important to bring high signal integrity and, and timely information. We'll try to keep it exactly every Thursday at 2 p.m., and just as we move into this, it's really, it's important to kind of stay grounded and to stay humble and to not let all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, get us all going every which way, so I'd like to really thank you, Jor. I'd like to thank everybody who's in the chat today. We've got some new listeners, I think, some people that I haven't seen before, maybe even a few bots, but that's oh man, that's terrible. No, seriously, Letha, Crypto Princess, Rick, thanks for the likes. Thanks for smashing. Clean Your Machine. I've seen you. Buck 52,000. Jason. AC, just probably some people who have had to leave already, but Living Good with Sabian, Sweating and Smiling Together. That's another podcast. That's another good one for working out and stuff. Those guys they do some great work, great stuff too. Anything else you want to wrap up with before we head out?
No, I'm just kind of thinking about what I got to do right after this. I hear Arnie whining in the background, but I'm actually going to be filming a video today for the 365, which goes through a full Bitcoin transaction. And I spent a lot of time in Bitcoin before I actually sent a real Bitcoin transaction. And let me tell you, once you send your first Bitcoin transaction that you set up, that you set the fee for, that you sign and you broadcast and you follow through the mempool, and you realize that you just sent money to somebody else without anybody else's permission, you didn't have to check with the bank. There's nobody that could have stopped that transaction. It is a very liberating feeling, and it changed me for sure. So I'm going to be sharing that as day 58 today on the channel, just going through the whole process of setting it up, following it in the mempool on layer 1, and waiting for it to be confirmed. So if you want to check that out, consider joining. I think that you won't find better value in Bitcoin than the 365-day course. I guarantee that. And I mean, if you trust us, you're already here. So why not learn a little bit more? That's what I would say. Just do it. We're here for a very short time in life. Bitcoin is considered pretty risky, although I see it as the exact opposite of that. But it's like, why not take a chance here, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of what age you are? It's pretty obvious that this thing is going to be a big part of our future, and you don't have to fully understand it to have some skin in the game. Just start somewhere. And I think that I see Cleaner Machine says I'm nervous now. I'm the one who needs to be nervous here. It's my Bitcoin, and last time I tried doing it, it took me 45 minutes because it kept getting. I didn't set the fee high enough, so it was a good learning experience. But I think today, hopefully, will be a little bit more smooth.
You touched on this thing, and here I go again. I'm sorry, but I have to say, the pain point of the existing banking system. Oh my word. I mean, how many times have you put a check in the bank and you wait and you wait and you wait and you're like, you need that check. You need that money, right?
Oh man, it's incredibly frustrating. I've had a couple of times I've been on the phone with customer service of banks, of PayPal, of who else was it with? Shopify, with somebody else. But it's like nobody wants to take responsibility for it. You sent money to somewhere. I waited a month for my deposit into my investment account because the bank or the investment account didn't like my name on there or didn't agree with something. I didn't hear about it. They just didn't put it through. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what are you guys doing? It took a month for me to deposit money into my investment account. Insane. It's crazy how many people are still using this archaic system and just like okay with it when we have Bitcoin.
Well, like I ran a business. I had employees and I would get paid. I finally get the paper check. They won't give you anything else. They have to give you the paper check. And now you go to the bank. And here you are, you're on the treadmill, right? And it's like, I feel like I'm in 1950, right? Well, I put the check in. Oh, well, we have to have a hold. We have to put a hold on the check because, and no, guess what?
Ask you where it came from.
I've got payroll. I've got this. I've got that. I got to pay for supplies. I got to pay. And at the end of all those things, then I pay myself. But I got to pay these guys who are working for me. And then now I've got to stretch and claw money from other places to try to like patch things together. It's murder trying to run a business that way. That is the whole thing. They know all that and they still do this because they can. So I absolutely love Bitcoin, not from the consumer side as much, although I do love that side. But I learned very quickly in business that, man, you cannot run a business that way. But on the flip side, can you imagine running a business where everything is like, bam, like you're paid in lightning? You're paying other people in lightning?
Instant settlement.
Instant settlement, like peer-to-peer business will run like clockwork that way. And you know
Man.
exactly where you're at.
Think about how much, think about how much time we've wasted, how much we've been set back by these archaic systems that we've just like become accustomed to. Yeah. And people are just okay with it. It's like, no, there's a better way to do things. It's here now. All you have to do is, take a little bit of time and energy to learn how to do it. And the more people that learn how to do it, the faster we can move into this new system. So,
and this passion right here that I'm feeling, this pain that I've kind of shared right here. This is one of the reasons why I've got a YouTube channel, because I'm like, hey, that ain't working. And this really does work. So you can plan ahead. You can preserve your wealth for future generations by doing this kind of thing, taking action now. Like I said, middle of this thing, let's not put our foot on the brake. Let's keep our foot firmly on the gas. We are on fire, you guys. We got to do this. So
let's keep winning.
Let's keep winning. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep this momentum. I love the conversation. I love the guests. Thank you guys so much for all this. Thank you very much. I think we're gonna put a cap on this now, and really enjoyed this, Jor. Thanks a lot.
Back at you, buddy. Thanks for having me on again. It's a pleasure. I love this Thursday afternoon. It's fun, and I would say for anybody who's been showing up every week, keep asking questions. I recommend everybody kind of has like their own notebook, Bitcoin notebook. Get a specific notebook for Bitcoin. Every time you learn something, write it down. Every time you got a question, write it down. And there are people like Bodhi and I who take time out of our day to come on the internet and answer questions for free. So I think that you're crazy if you're not taking advantage of that. So always verify, like never trust what we say. But, for the most part, we've been pretty directionally correct so far through our experience here. So, I got to do that. Thanks, Dats. I got to go press my start earning button on Ember. It's 3:00, so that's my alarm.
Ooh, there you go. There you go. All right. Hey, y'all. It's great to be with you. Jor, you guys take care. We will see you next week, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Bitcoin Generations. All right. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.